Hey everyone, welcome to another deep dive. You know how much we love to get our hands dirty with the latest intel, and this one is a doozy. We're calling it the Daybridge Evolution.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where the more we dig, the weirder it gets. And trust me, we've dug deep.
We've got reports, market data, even some classified leaks that point to a world on the brink of a total transformation. It's like someone hit the fast forward button on evolution.
And not just any evolution, we're talking about the convergence of cutting-edge tech, corporate ambition, and, well, the resurgence of the supernatural.
Okay, gotta admit, that's got my attention. So where do we even begin with something this big?
The epicenter of all this seems to be Daybridge, a seemingly ordinary town that's become ground zero for something extraordinary.
Daybridge. What's so special about this place?
Well, for starters, it's home to Kane Industries, a company that's been pushing the boundaries of quantum enhancement technology.
Enhancement technology.
Uh-huh.
That sounds pretty sci-fi.
It is. But what they've stumbled upon goes way beyond anything we've seen before. They're not just enhancing human capabilities. They're tapping into something ancient, something that's changing the very fabric of reality.
Hold on, you're saying they're messing with the laws of physics?
Yeah, pretty much. It seems their research into combining supernatural abilities with human enhancements has backfired big time.
Backfired. How so? Give me some specifics.
Well, the reports describe some pretty bizarre incidents happening around Kane Industries headquarters. We're talking cars existing in multiple parking spaces at once.
Wait, what? Cars in multiple places at the same time? How is that even possible?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it gets weirder. There's an account of a time loop that trapped people in a coffee shop across the street from Kane Industries. Imagine being stuck in a caffeine-fueled time warp.
That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing those are just the tip of the iceberg.
You got it. It's not just localized weirdness either. It seems this instability is impacting the entire supernatural world, too. We're talking collapsing vampire houses, werewolf packs losing control, even the Fae courts reporting disturbances in their realms.
So it's like Kane Industries threw a wrench into the cosmic machinery, and now everything's going haywire.
That's a pretty good analogy. And the really unsettling part is that this might not be a simple case of breaking the laws of physics. It's more like reality itself is remembering something ancient, something more fluid and interconnected.
Okay, you're losing me a bit. What do you mean by reality remembering something?
Well, think about it. For centuries, we've had these stories of vampires, werewolves, witches, all operating within certain boundaries. But what if those boundaries were artificial? What if they were imposed on them rather than inherent to their nature?
So you're saying that maybe, just maybe, these supernatural beings were once even more powerful, or that their powers were somehow linked in ways we don't understand now.
It's a mind-blowing concept, and it's not just a fringe theory. Dr. Nash, Kane Industries' lead researcher, believes that supernatural species were never meant to be separate. The boundaries we see now might be artificial constructs that are now dissolving thanks to their research.
So we've got reality warping around Kane Industries, traditional supernatural powers going haywire, and this wild idea that reality is reverting to a more fluid state. I gotta ask, how does all this impact the corporate world?
That's where things get really interesting, because imagine you're a CEO and suddenly your employees are manifesting superpowers. It's a dream and a nightmare all rolled into one.
Yeah, on the one hand, you've got this incredible potential workforce, but on the other hand, how do you even begin to manage it, control it, and most importantly, how do you profit from it?
Exactly. And that's what we're going to dive into next. All right, so last time we left off with this tantalizing question. How is the corporate world reacting to the Daybridge evolution? And trust me, the answer is not simple.
Well, let's unpack it then.
Yeah.
Because I have a feeling this is where things get really interesting.
You're absolutely right. It's one thing to talk about reality warping and ancient forces resurfacing, but the real impact, the human cost, that's where the story gets real.
And the source material is full of those stories, isn't it? It's not just about stock prices and corporate maneuvering. It's about people's lives being turned upside down.
Exactly. And one of the things that really struck me was the sheer scale of it. The source material mentions the Daybridge Community Center being completely overwhelmed with people trying to cope with these sudden changes.
The Daybridge Community Center. What's happening there?
Well, imagine a place that's used to dealing with everyday problems, like helping people find jobs or providing support for families. Now, picture those same people coming in, struggling with things like suddenly being able to teleport or read minds. It's a whole new level of need.
Wow, it's got to be a lot for them to handle. It's like their entire job description just got rewritten overnight.
Exactly. The staff is doing their best to adapt, but it's a steep learning curve for everyone involved.
It reminds me of that story you included in the materials about the retired bus driver Michael Sullivan.
Oh, yeah. Michael's case is a perfect example of how unpredictable and disruptive these changes can be. He was at the grocery store, worried about making ends meet, when suddenly his groceries started multiplying out of control. It seems his financial stress somehow triggered his latent abilities.
I can't even imagine what that must have been like. One minute you're trying to figure out how to pay for milk and eggs. The next minute you're knee-deep in loaves of bread.
It's a powerful reminder that these changes aren't happening in some sterile lab environment. They're impacting real people in their everyday lives.
So how are people coping? Are there any common threads or patterns emerging from these stories?
Well, the source material suggests that there's a whole spectrum of responses, from wonder and excitement to fear and confusion. But there are definitely some recurring themes.
Like what?
Well, for starters, religious communities are having a tough time grappling with all of this. I mean, how do you reconcile ancient beliefs with the sudden emergence of superpowers? Some see it as a sign of divine intervention, while others view it with suspicion, even fear.
Yeah, it's like the very foundation of their belief systems is being shaken.
Exactly. And then there's the psychological impact. For some people, these new abilities are empowering. They feel liberated, like they've finally unlocked their true potential. But for others, it's a source of anxiety and trauma.
I can see that. Imagine suddenly being able to sense other people's emotions or having visions of the future. That would be overwhelming, to say the least.
Absolutely. And it raises some really important questions about mental health and support systems in this new reality. The source material suggests that mastering these abilities isn't just about physical training or mental discipline. It's about understanding the connection between consciousness, reality, and the nature of what it means to be human.
Okay, so we've got individuals struggling to adapt, religious communities wrestling with new interpretations, and the psychological implications are huge. But what about the larger picture? How are corporations and governments reacting to the Daybridge evolution?
Well, on the corporate side, there's a definite shift from containment to control.
What do you mean?
Well, initially, there was a lot of secrecy and denial. Corporations tried to downplay the situation, keep it under wraps, but now they're realizing that this is too big to ignore. They're shifting gears, trying to figure out how to harness these changes, how to monetize them.
So instead of trying to suppress enhancement, they're trying to standardize it, package it, and sell it.
Exactly. They're developing training programs, creating specialized insurance policies, even setting up recruitment divisions to scout out and assess potential enhancers. It's a whole new industry springing up around these abilities.
And I bet there are some ethical gray areas in all of this. Who gets access to these enhancements? Who decides who gets to be enhanced and who doesn't? What about the potential for exploitation?
All valid concerns. And the source material definitely highlights those tensions. The potential for creating a two-tiered society with the enhanced elite on top and everyone else struggling to catch up is very real.
And what about governments? Are they just sitting back and letting corporations call the shots?
Some are, but others are taking a more proactive approach. The source material mentions something called sovereign enhancement zones, essentially countries that are positioning themselves as havens for enhancement research and development. They're offering incentives to attract scientists, investors, and anyone with the potential to be enhanced.
Sounds like things are about to get even more competitive on the global stage.
Yeah, it's like the Daybridge Evolution is accelerating trends that were already in motion, like corporate consolidation, the rise of nationalism, the blurring of lines between science and the supernatural. It's a whole new world out there.
So we've got this chaotic mix of individual struggles, corporate maneuvering, and geopolitical shifts. But there's also this underlying feeling that something bigger is going on, right? Like this isn't just random chance. It's part of some larger pattern.
You're picking up on a key element here, and that's what we're going to explore next, because the source material drops some hints about a hidden layer to all of this, about individuals and organizations who seem to have a deeper understanding of what's happening.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's dive into that. Who are these hidden players? What are their motivations? And what role might they be playing in shaping the Daybridge evolution? Okay, so we've laid out the groundwork. We've talked about the reality-bending effects, the corporate scramble, the individual stories of struggle and adaptation. But now I want to get to the good stuff. The conspiracy theories, the behind-the-scenes machinations, the hidden players who might be orchestrating this whole Daybridge evolution.
Well, you're in luck, because the source material you've provided is full of tantalizing clues and hints about just that. And believe me, some of these theories are pretty wild.
So spill the beans. Who are these puppet masters pulling the strings?
Well, one name that keeps popping up is Alice Chen. She was a brilliant researcher at Kane Industries working in their supernatural research division. But officially, she died in a lab accident years ago.
Officially. But you're thinking there's more to the story.
The source material suggests that her death might have been faked, possibly as part of a larger plan. Remember, her research focused on the quantum framework, essentially the source code of reality.
So she could be out there manipulating the very fabric of reality from the shadows.
It's not impossible. And let's not forget, she had access to cutting-edge technology and classified information before her supposed demise. Who knows what she might be capable of now?
Okay, that's one to keep an eye on. Then there's Dr. Nash, the current lead researcher at Kane Industries. She seems to have a very specific vision for enhancement, but her motivations are a bit murky.
Dr. Nash is a fascinating character. She's incredibly intelligent, driven, and utterly convinced that she's doing the right thing. But her vision of a world where supernatural abilities are restored to their full potential, that's a bit unsettling, to say the least.
Yeah, who gets to decide what the right balance is, and what happens to those who don't fit into that vision?
Exactly. And then we have Leela, a powerful witch who seems to be playing both sides.
Leela, tell me more about her.
She's a real enigma. She operates in the shadows, offering cryptic advice and warnings to both corporations and supernatural factions. But her true allegiance is unclear. It's possible she's trying to protect the supernatural world from the encroaching influence of corporations. But she could just as easily have her own agenda.
Okay, so we've got a rogue scientist, a shadowy witch, and let's not forget about the corporations themselves. They're not exactly innocent bystanders in all of this, are they?
Definitely. No. Kane Industries is obviously a major player, but there are others. Global Tech Industries, Quantum Dynamics Corp., they're all vying for control of this new landscape. They're investing heavily in enhancement research, lobbying governments, even forming private armies. It's a high-stakes game of power and influence, and the rules are constantly changing.
So with all these players on the board, each with their own motives and strategies, what are the possible outcomes of this whole Daybridge Evolution thing?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The source material offers a range of possibilities. Some see a future where humanity transcends its limitations and achieves a new level of understanding and cooperation. Others foresee a dystopian world where the enhanced elite rule over the unenhanced masses, exploiting both humans and supernatural beings for their own gain.
It's almost like we're standing at a crossroads, and the choices we make now will determine the fate of our species.
Well said. And that's what makes this whole situation so compelling. It's not just about superpowers and technological advancements, it's about the very nature of what it means to be human in a world where the boundaries of reality are constantly shifting.
So where do we go from here? What can we do with all this information?
Well, the most important thing is to stay informed, to question everything, and to be mindful of the potential consequences of our choices. We need to be aware of the forces at play, both seen and unseen, and make informed decisions that shape the future we want to create.
Well said. And that's what we try to do here on the show, right? Provide the information and the context so that people can make up their own minds.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, especially in a world as unpredictable and transformative as ours.
Well, listener, that's our deep dive into the Daybridge Evolution. It's a complex and fascinating topic, and we've only scratched the surface. But hopefully this has given you some food for thought and encouraged you to explore these ideas further.
The future is not set in stone. It's up to each of us to decide what role we want to play in shaping it.
Thanks for joining us. And remember, stay curious.